Most of you will recognize the following sounds.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
Some of you may recognize this. But how many of you can recognize the following noise? That is the sound of a woman diagnosed with multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, or MDR-TB. The bacterium responsible for this, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, has multiplied in her lungs and propagated the development of pneumonia. She has been isolated in a negative pressure room and treated regularly with highly toxic, highly expensive antibiotics, as per the World Health Organization's guidelines. These antibiotics are keeping her alive by fighting back the infection. However, misuse of antibiotics has also led to the development of her hyper-resistant bacterial disease in the first place. Are the positive benefits of antibiotics worth the blitzkrieg of superbugs assaulting the world? Antibiotics were first discovered by slovenly scientist Alexander Fleming in 1928, but the public appearance of this miracle cure did not occur until the Coconut Grove Fire of 1942. After the horrific blaze wrought its damage, the military released penicillin to hospitals housing the victims. Without the antibiotics available, the majority of patients would have quickly succumbed to the infection caused by their open wounds. Once the details of the patient's miraculous survival slipped out, the media latched onto the idea of this panacea with a fury. Diseases that had been previously untreatable, such as syphilis or tuberculosis, were now perfectly manageable. A full treatment of these wonderful pills was enough to annihilate any bacterial infection, bar none. Things were wonderful. Society, including medical professionals who should have known better, made the jump in logic that perhaps these wonderful antibiotics would work on things that weren't strictly bacteria-caused. Things like the flu, AIDS, or even Ebola would no longer threaten humanity if the theory was correct. Alexander Fleming, upon claiming a Nobel Prize in 1945 for the discovery of penicillin, stated that it was not difficult to create penicillin-resistant microbes in the laboratory, simply by exposing the bacteria to non-lethal amounts of the selective poison. If that was the case, then why should we not expect the same thing to happen naturally if we misused antibiotics? Bacteria are capable of developing resistance to antibiotics in 3 ways. The first is that they can exchange genes with other drug-resistant bacteria. The second is that they can inherit small, circular pieces of DNA, known as plasmids, that transfer the resistance to their offspring. The third option was what Fleming was concerned about: mutation of bacteria into drug-resistant variations of themselves through overexposure or misuse of antibiotics. In 1947, only 4 years after the mass production of penicillin began, Fleming's perceived concern became a real threat. The first case of penicillin-resistant bacteria came into being and proved that Fleming had not simply been fear-mongering.
Well, it's quite simple, really. once the bacteria has become exposed to the antibiotics enough times without killing it, it will mutate to become resistant to the drug. Take Staphylococcus aureus as an example. So many viral infections are treated with antibiotics that, with gold staph on the skin, it was practically the bacteria's duty to develop a tolerance to our magic bullet. Ridiculous title. The problems that our flagrant overuse of antibiotics has caused should be called the magical but not really boomerang.
If the bacteria that we developed these antibiotics to combat are now immune to our poison, what are we killing? Imagine that this city is the human body. Every building is a nerve cluster or a piece of intestine, and each of the people scurrying about is a beneficial bacteria from the human microbiome. These bacteria are responsible for a number of important tasks, including the production of vitamins and maintaining healthy digestion of matter. So what would happen if our vaunted poison targeted our most delicate of helpers? The body falls into disarray as the withering microbiome is unable to perform their duties. The digestive tract begins to suffer, as do conjunctival and skin bacteria. The damage that we had sought to do to bacterial infections now damages some of our most vital tools for homeostasis. Our panacea has become our punishment.
Now, not only is our cure ineffective at combating our bacterial foes, it has begun to harm our microbial allies. Even more so, we must develop new and exotic methods of dealing with these resistant renegades. I hear they're using clavonic acid in conjunction with penicillin derivatives in order to penetrate the antibiotic shielding, injecting acid into the body. I'm sure there are no side effects for that.
In an attempt to circumvent the resistant layers that these superbugs now possess, the medical community has begun to create esoteric combinations of chemicals. The aforementioned Shrez is a potent and toxic cocktail of antibiotics that have produced negative side effects on the body. Renal failure, increased chance of mental health issues, permanent damage to the reproductive system. So now we are harming ourselves in an attempt to defeat our self-made monstrosity. Have antibiotics improved our quality of life? Without a doubt, yes. However, we cannot afford to continue along the path we have been. Each year, more and more drug-resistant bacterial strains are appearing because of humanity's unchecked use of antibiotics. New research must be done into discovering original antimicrobials that have never been used before. Harsher restrictions need to be enforced regarding distribution and application of antibiotics. If these things do not happen, then it is only a matter of time before the magic boomerang comes rocketing back towards us, creating a new generation of bacterial brutality.